Hi, Kerry. Can you hear me?
Hi, intelligence service. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. What have we got today? What are you bringing us today? And who are we? First of all, how rude of us.
Right.
Mind the Matter Project, suicide prevention, bringing you awareness and as part of prevention, because we all know that crime brings a lot of depression. But we're definitely bringing you awareness here today. Go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, I'm Adrian of Intelligence Service Investigations. I also run the Crime Lab radio show on Tuesday mornings, as you would have heard this morning and every Tuesday morning. I mentioned on the show today that I was going to be speaking to you, Kerry. So thank you very much for joining me this evening. And I want to talk to you about this video clip that has gone, I guess, viral all around the world of a young man being held by members of the public. A lot of criticism on both sides. So basically, I wanted to just discuss it with you just to see what your thought processes were versus my own thought processes, and see what we think after we watch the video. So I think the best thing to do is for us to watch the video. Also being mindful, I know people have probably seen the video a number of times already, but there is some strong language and we apologize for that. But the video is as we've received it. So when you're ready, Kerry.
Can you believe this? What I want is not showing me. Can you believe this?
It looks.
I have the button in my way.
All right, okay. I'm sure you'll click on when you're ready.
Give him a knife out, man. Put it on the fucking floor. Put it on the fucking floor. Put the knife out. Put it on the floor now. Get up. Take the fucking knife on the floor. You stick it in someone. Put it on the floor. See? Take the fucking video.
Look at the fucking size of the knife.
Stay there.
Look at the size of the knife.
Stupid fucking prick. Hey! Fucking stick it straight into you. You think that's funny? Going around robbing 12-year-old kids. Put it on the car. 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 Put it on the car.
Look at the size of it.
Leave it there.
What the fuck are you doing with that knife? Oh my god, I can't believe it.
You got the fucking knife, yeah? You see it? You filmed that?
There were fucking 6 of them last night. Pulled a knife out on Rico. It's
Ask him where
13.
he lives.
How old are you? He can show us where he lives.
13-year-old kid.
13.
13-year-old kid.
Can
you agree? Whereabouts, Raynham?
I'm 13,
What road is that?
I don't know.
You don't know the fucking road, mate.
Yeah, he's a liar. RM1398 is this road here.
980.
You fucking stay there.
Then it's probably there, but it's
You
like
don't
it's
know
not
where
the
you
cross
live.
car. It's not the cross car, man.
Tell me the fucking road, mate.
I don't know
You're
the
not
road
from
name.
Raynham, that's what it is. You come to rob kids
I bet
here,
someone
innit?
checked.
You come to leave it there.
There's loads of people.
Are the police coming? No, see, when somebody's already done it, that's what I'm saying.
He's gonna be out in a couple hours if the fucking police come in. He's loving it. He's coming out in a couple hours. He should have got put in the boot and gone. Man. Not come back, man. Listen, if there was all 6 of them last night, they would have put someone else in the boot. You know what I'm saying? They ain't stupid, man.
Give it now.
I'm trying to tell you guys why.
Give me your
Please,
phone.
just
Give me your phone. Get your
I
fucking
don't
phone
have
out.
my phone on me. You can
don't have
check
your
me
phone
right
on?
now. You guys wanna check me? Search me right now. I don't have my phone on me. I came out here by myself.
Robbing other fucking kids, fam.
Alright,
What are you doing here, mate? What are you
You're lucky them to rob me. What's wrong with you?
I just moved here.
You moved here. Why you going
Last night they tried to rob these kids. These kids they tried to rob last night. These kids.
I'm trying to find
Listen to me, man. Wait for now.
If one of these tell me that you've tried to rob them again, I swear to God, I'm gonna come round and I'll stick that right on your fucking head. Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
You better fucking move, yeah?
He ain't even bleeding. Why no one made him bleed?
Yeah, I'm a fucking vegetable. Show him the knife.
Trying to rob little kids, man.
The fucking move, stay there.
That's his scooter. That's his scooter. That ain't his scooter. That is Cam. No, that's not his scooter. I used to walk.
No, I know.
That's
Whose scooter is that?
No, it's not his.
Not yours.
That's not. He's just robbed that of someone.
So where's the other boys you was with?
I wasn't with
You just go around robbing people like that. Stole the scooter.
I didn't go around.
This is your game, is it? This is your game, yeah? What you do for a living, yeah? You don't want to get a fucking job and earn money? You want to rob little kids? It's fucking too late. He can't tell you his name, he can't.
Oh gosh. So you can see that, right?
Yeah.
Can I so I retain my memory, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure.
I'm appalled at that because it doesn't show actually the beginning of what he's supposed to have done. It does show a weapon, but it actually shows adults threatening this person too. So what is example is there to be set here when you've heard already one of the adults said, I swear to effing God, I'm going to come around here and I'm going to, and he does the motion. That in itself, well, it just washes the purpose of the discipline of what you're trying to say to this child.
I understand that. The issue again with it is as well is that from what I can pick up before that precise incident that you've just mentioned, it seems like the children of that particular man and the lady that were talking experienced an attempted robbery on themselves just the night before. So it would appear that this boy may have been involved or may have not involved, as you rightly point out. You don't exactly know what has gone on prior to him being detained. But I think the thing for me is the fact that he was detained is what is the overriding situation for me, is because had he not got detained, as it were, until, and I presume that the police did turn up. I've not seen any video.
Well, they would have had to after that's been put all over the media, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I'm sure they would have turned up. Maybe someone just stopped filming, or they just chose not to film that part, which I find highly unlikely. But I'm sure he was not going to walk away from there without being detained by police. But the thing is, had he not been detained, what was his intentions? What was he going to do with such a big kitchen knife? I know he said he was 13. To me, he looked slightly older, maybe 15, but irrespective of that, a 13-year-old is walking around aimlessly with that big article on him. So
because they feel they need to protect themselves. You heard them already. They said 6 of them last the night before. If that's what children are walking around in horror, that they feel they need to protect themselves. So that's what they're doing, taking out their mother's kitchen knives, you know.
it appears so.
No, he was on a scooter, clearly. That was lying in the road. However, what if he was just on his daily jobs and he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but carrying a weapon? But they decided to frisk him down to find that weapon. Because there was no mention of him, he was branding it out in the street. So how did they come across that in the first place?
Well, this is what we just don't know. The way that the video, as these videos often jump in, you always get a juicy bit, but you don't actually see the actual cause.
And this is where people are jumping on the bandwagon. I mean,
conclusions.
You titled this mob. I had to do my research, what really was a mob. And
right, okay,
different ways of looking at it, especially in the old-fashioned days of Al Capone.
Okay, right, yeah, okay. The Italian mob, I
they're
understand.
saying is mentally mobbed now. What I was looking at is the mentality of the mob is meaning that you see something, you're going to jump on the bandwagon and you're going to say, yes, that's right, we'll follow that decision. And rather than break down the facts of what actually did occur. And people just jump on the bandwagon and follow fashion. So that's what the mob, what I took from that little bit of research today was about mentally following that fashion without knowing the full details.
Of course. Now, the trick that you have there, which you mentioned, which is a good point, people following fashion, it's for the police and not Joe Public to investigate and find out what actually took place. Now, as far as we know up until this point, and I haven't heard anything else since this video has been released, but for me, and I say all, I don't mean to make it seem minuscule in any way or shape or form, but all he is guilty of at present is carrying a bladed article, which is prohibited. That's all he's really guilty of, unless somebody can say that bladed article was used the night before in an attempted robbery, or we've just seen him trying to stick someone up round the corner. The other thing I wanted to mention was the boy's reaction to...
He seems so scared.
Well,
he didn't seem like, well, come on then, bruv. He wasn't doing that. He actually seemed petrified. And the minute the adult, I'm going to say that, adult lunged towards him to demonstrate what he would do with them, he was petrified. Okay, is that teaching a lesson? Is that what they have to do now to teach the kids a very valuable lesson? Would that teach him a lesson? Would that teach that particular boy a lesson? Because for me, I think this is going to, for me, don't stop at the boy, does it? If the mother or the parent was witnessing that, of course they've got something to say. Of course they have. So let's think about just that child here. Let's talk about the repercussions of the family, wherever he came from too. Because the ridicule would be on the mother or the parent, whoever's got parental responsibility. The ridicule goes, what kind of person lets their son walk around with a gun, with a knife? And so, hold on a minute, the parent may not even know this.
Well, this is the trouble as well. The kids are leaving the house with these articles stuffed down their trousers, and the parents...
So must the parents search them before they leave the house?
Well, it's getting to that stage now, isn't it? And again, even you search your kids on the way out. What's stopping, Joe Bloggs around the corner saying, here, hold on to this just in case you need it. So you've done your bit as a parent, kid's gone out the house, half an hour later, he's been detained, by this angry mob. And I wanted to focus on the mob because, like you said, going back in the day, mobs stoning people and things like that. If somebody said he's guilty, then that's it, he's guilty and he'd be flogged to death or whatever. In this instant, I'm glad that the boy in particular was not harmed as best as we know. But there is concern for his welfare, because like you say, there is adults lunging at him. But again, I'm sort of late 40s now. I've never walked around with a big knife like that and said, I'm gonna,
because you're not youth and you're not living in that youthful shadow. You see, we live amongst the adults, what the adults are going to do, the wicked adults of the world, how they're going to see revenge. Yes, that happens amongst adults, but these kids, because we're not of that kid age anymore, we get sidetracked into our own vision, yet the kids are suffering with this out there in the community of where do they run, where do they turn to, how do they can't even play anymore. A kid can't be playing. Mind you, they were supposed to be on lockdown.
That's the other thing.
Yeah, I know, but that didn't mean you couldn't go out for 5 minutes, get a bit of exercise, maybe you go down the shop. But the thing is, if you want to sit there and justify that the boy was out, there was more than one adult out.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And there wasn't social distance. Not trying to get sidetracked.
No, yeah, I understand that.
Seriousness of, I don't think those adults acted appropriately because it almost came like sittings as arrest.
Well,
Okay.
that's what it was. I think, again, to be fair to the adults as well, we still don't know how it came about, but for me, at least they did something. It might not have been polished, but they did something to get at least one night off the street. And I think, you know, as adults, we got to do more. The trouble is, like you said,
did you hear also that, not to sidestep, they said they were thinking about they should have bundled him in a car.
I think that comment came from somebody who was filming, and I think, just judging by the language that was used, I think that person was a young person trying to make a point, and the point was, in my mind, he was saying, well, why should we give him a chance? Because had he caught up with whoever it is he's looking for, the chances are that person wouldn't have had a chance. And you do have to ask yourself, if that boy was so scared, as he appeared to be in the video, the same knife that he took out to use to protect himself, he was disabled in 2 seconds. All it took was 2 large-sized gentlemen to sort of just string him up and take it off of him.
And that's the part you didn't see.
You know,
I have to say, we don't see what that boy went through before he got apprehended.
No,
we don't know. Come on, we don't know. Was he branding it, waving it around? So that's how they spotted and identified him.
We don't know that.
We don't know, and I really want to say we don't know now, and that's the part about it. The missing beginning, the beginning of it. You're going to judge. How do we know that wasn't even a setup? I have to be honest.
Well, yeah, you
don't know.
You don't know, but I think, given the sentiment and the way it all seemed to happen, I think it's a realistic enough view. Sorry, the camera can lie, and you'll say it's a realistic approach. But like I said, you don't know the beginning of how that video goes. If we go back to the video, all you've got is a boy on the floor. How do we know that one stage where we say, well, you know what, we're going to make an example of this little black child because they didn't see any other colour around. That could. Well, I think. Look at it. I have to look at it from my point of view. If I can come up with another scenario, then we must look into that other scenario or somebody else's scenario. I think that the chap that was standing there, the biggest chap to the front of the car, who kept saying "stay there," I think, to me, he looked like he was Indian or of Asian descent, but. Culturally,
we're talking about the weapon. I understand that, but what I'm trying to say to you is that we only got the beginning, and I do know that some people can be forced in a situation to make it look like.
All right, then let me put it to you another way. Then, if the police turned up, minus the mob, and they found that weapon on that boy, how would you expect the police to deal with that?
Read him his rights, take him down, but what's going to happen? He's 13, he'll probably be back out again, won't he?
Irrespective of him being back out, what I'm looking at is, you know, you say the mob was hostile, which they were.
They were.
But I put that down to frustration, because if they've got kids at home, if they've got kids at home like we all have,
then they're going to be angry at what they're seeing, because they're going to want to protect the children from that kind of stuff. So unfortunately, the boy is made an example of. I think they could have done a better way of setting the example, because after all, I just didn't like it. I didn't like what, you know, I understand you can apprehend, I understand the adrenaline's running, but the threats, they're talking about abandoning the car, where do you live, mate, exposing all of that, actually, on media. So it's a good job that the boy didn't put his address, because then his home is a target. his parents are a target. And I think it, you know, some people, yeah, let's get the footage. But there are some things that you can just like, you want to teach him a lesson. You could have done that a little bit more discreetly in some of the information. That's all I say.
Okay.
And the fact that the video has not been taken down, you have a copy of it, it's all over the media. We're not sure of that boy's identity at 13 years old. Should have actually even be on the media.
The trouble with this video is that it's sensationalized because of what is going on in the current climate, and it's also been sensationalized because yet again it is a little black boy. Let's be honest.
I don't think it really matters on the color. I just know that the response.
But
I'm looking at. Can I look at obviously the cultural response? And that's what I'm looking at. The responses. If somebody, yes, you to teach my child a lesson, but what if somebody saw that and said, you know what, you've just threatened the boy, you know, and it causes more aggression and
perhaps
handle yourself correctly, and
perhaps what we need to do is ask somebody who's lost a child through knife crime what their thought process.
Well, we went through this, but I'll be honest with you, we went through a very close friend of mine, lost his son, brutally stabbed, and hearing it, I mean, it was absolutely devastation. Those questions, had that been another child in that situation, should we have sympathy for these children? I do have sympathy for these children because they are doing acts of crime. They are trying to protect themselves, and I have some sympathy for those that are just scared, but I don't have the sympathy for those that go out and do it. No, and I have to think that there doesn't even become this bubble up yet. You know, that's in the background. That bubble up in the background amongst their friends is happening, but in front of the adults and stuff, they're not seeing anything that's coming. Does that make sense? Until it's too late.
What I think is that the prison life, to a certain extent, or to quite a large extent, is
not scaring anyone anymore, is it? Here,
no,
if I have to say UK versus another, I mean, I've sat down, I literally have watched a lot of prison about prisons and the inside of the prisons, which some of them are very, very scary. But if you get here and you got a mobile phone and a pizza, and you can buy trainers and you can trade and you can go shop, and you've committed a crime and you're laughing about it, you're not getting your rehabilitation. You're living in a holiday camp just waiting to be released to come and do it again. There is no rehabilitation in the way that these UK prisons are presenting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say UK prisons because I mean, you'd be on the back end of the scheme. Two people are too quick to turn around. Right, that's it, incarcerate. But where is the rehabilitation when you're incarcerating them? How do you rehabilitate if you are incarcerating them? What lesson are they actually learning there?
Well,
lock them up? It's not happening, is it?
Again, you see, you say rehabilitate, which obviously is the
right. You should try a USA prison. That's what they should try.
Well, the trouble is here in this country is that when you start talking about looking at other systems, oh, it's too harsh, it's too this, it's too that. Look at the latest laws that we've talked about this beforehand. Corporal punishment, i.e., smacking your child, is now banned in Scotland, and at some point going to take effect here in the UK. Now,
I was just talking about that.
You're right. We all grew up with our mums throwing the slipper at us, or our dads striking us with the belt.
Let's call them instruments, love.
Right. Okay. An instrument. You know, when we walk in the house later than we should have, and it wasn't seen as I guess it was seen as the norm. I certainly know from my own experience, if my father in particular told me be home at such time, a smart person would be home at half an hour earlier, just to make sure that you were clear on both sides, because again, you wanted to go out tomorrow and you didn't want nothing today to impede that. And that particular generation, they kind of meant what they said. And personally,
we were completely we talking about discipline.
Yeah.
We were completely disciplined, and I have to say, it wasn't just at home. In my era, and that's the 1970s, we were disciplined at school. And the school brought in punishment, and that punishment would become in the way of a slipper, a cane, and a ruler, and sometimes they dash a chalkboard at you.
I think
you know, you could get your hands off, and I literally watched teachers lose their temper with students, and I was just like, sometimes it's uncalled for, and sometimes the students were uncalled for, and there was no place of safety, not at school, and neither at home, and neither the street.
I left. I began school, secondary school, the year the cane finished. I remember many of my friends above me told me, "Oh, you're lucky the cane's finished, because this headmaster, he was famous for handing it out." So for me, there was a slight reprieve at school, but at home, certainly not. But again, the difference is nowadays, as kids come and go. They rule their parents.
They took the discipline away.
Yeah.
You feel that kids are more unruly because they're not disciplined.
Yeah.
But yet society, and actually is trying to say to you that the discipline that we had caused a lot of discipline in other adults' lives, causing people to suffer from domestic violence, male and female, and it wrecked lives. So I think what the society is trying to say is that you can discipline your children without instruments, and that there should be a better way than physical violence. But let's go back to knife crime. That knife crime, children feel that they have to walk around with a knife, and I feel that then don't go out, then stay your ass indoors, because I mean, they're doing the virtual world. I mean, is there anything safe? What can you do? I mean, other than playtime, you think about playtime. What are you doing? Hanging out the shops? No. What are you doing then? And what you can do in constructive? Do you know what I mean?
But doesn't this boil down to having something constructive at home as well? Because again,
and again, I think at the end of the day, what if the person is they're of age to be left alone for a few hours? What if the parents were at work? They don't expect their child. To me, I'm sure they wouldn't expect their child to be like that. But what if the child's disciplining the parents as well?
But again, you say, what if the child is schooling the parent? For me, the parent, to a certain extent, isn't stupid, because the parent has got to go out, keep a roof over one's head, got to go down the shops, got to do this, got to do all the stuff that any normal, decent parent would do. Throughout the course of that, the parent, in my mind, must see what is going on around. So for argument's sake, when I used to co-parent with my son, and I go and pick him up from where his mum lived, I drive through the estate. Now, I never grew up on that estate, but it only takes me a split second to work out who my son shouldn't be hanging around with. Does that make sense? And, when I used to pick him up, I used to say to him, you see those boys over there, you might know them because you live on their estate or whatever, but do your effort best to stay out of their clutches, because you're on the way to school, you pass them in the morning sitting on the gate, but they want you to go and pass parcels to people standing across the road, and next thing you'll have a criminal record for supplying drugs, and that's where it starts. So I believe that parents do see things and should say. But if you're in the house and as a parent your child is telling you to F off and get out of my room and you have no control. If that's how it is in the house, then what we just witnessed on that video is going to be the constant byproduct of that, which we have seen for the last couple of years now, with a large increase every year.
Can I be? I'll be honest with you. Being a single mother, I feel that sometimes you can be up against that peer pressure in the street.
Yes, of course, I understand.
And you want to do right by your children, of course you do. And you don't want to suffocate your children. So I don't want you hanging around with blah, blah, because then you're preventing your children. And I think I lost my train of thought, to be honest, what I was about to say.
Well, you were saying about being a single parent, and you know, they might.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Being a single parent, sometimes you can run into major difficulties, and some of these single parents out there or parents out there may be suffering from some depression as well and can't get up, are motivated, which is then giving the lackluster approach for the children to have in here.
Yeah.
Right, you know what? I don't know what to do with my life now. Parents can't get up, they're not paying attention to me. I seem to be like a little adult, being an adult in the house. And here I am having a world out there of my own because there's no guidance around. And I think when parents get in trouble like this 13-year-old, I'm sure there'll be social services should be involved. The social service, and nobody wants social services involved, but you can't have it both ways. You're saying there's a problem here if a child is doing something like he's doing there. You're saying there's going to be a major problem with a child taking a knife out in the street. What's going on? Now, is that a reflection of the parents, or is that a reflection on who that child is around, or what's going on for that child? See,
yeah,
they have their own worlds.
Yeah, they do. Again, for me, the trouble is that the as you put it, the world has been created for the child.
Or for the system. Can I just say that's up to fail? Because I have to say that that's where I was going with it. Social services, when you do ask for social services, I've been a parent, right? And I've asked for help, because particularly when I have my child and they diagnose my child with ADHD, you know, as they do quite a few people, without looking further into things. And I think at the end of the day, had they looked further into my life, then it really probably would have been a different outcome. And I'd said to them, hey, I'm a victim of domestic violence. Had I said that to them, and they would have looked at that whole situation. Of course you don't. My child's playing up. Something wrong with him. They never asked you, how is your home life?
Well, that's what I was going to say next, because again, a lot of these children, you find that there is no father figure around them, and the violence.
Well, there is, but they're not able to be fathers, because I'm really in a case at the moment, if I'm honest, and the case that I'm reading at the moment is completely parent alienation. Okay. So and we've got a term, and it's a diagnosis. It's called malicious mother syndrome.
Right.
Okay, and that's a legal term for diagnosis, because at the end of the day, that means, and that addresses parent alienation. That's what's going on in society today. Too much parent alienation. I'm not suggesting it's always the mother. I'm suggesting that it works twofold when it comes to the breakdown of relationships within the family household. I believe that sometimes fathers are not being able to be fathers now anymore, because the women, I can do it all by myself. I don't want you disciplining my child. That hurts. Just because you were brought up that way doesn't mean you're going to put a hand on my child, which then sends another message out to the father.
So what is the message then? Because
I think that parenting, everybody has the idea of parenting, and they're getting their ideas from somebody else, word of mouth or whatever else. But if majority of everybody's in the same sort of stage, then you know we're looking for role models to teach someone. So hold on a minute. You know, you're on Facebook 24 hours a day all the time, or Do you know your sons are out there doing this, that, and the other? What are you doing with your kids? Why aren't you letting your children see the father or seeing the mother? And kids will act out because they're looking for those role models, and they are forming families outside of their own homes.
They are, but I think as well, like you say, with the parents not governing their children, the children are becoming wild. And the point I was raising about the absent fathers in particular, the crime seems to be stemming from the young boys, perpetrated by young boys against young boys. Occasionally, you will hear a girl who's been attacked by a group of men or whatever, and not even on a sexual grounds, more physical attack. That tends to be gang related and drug related. But 9 out of 10 times this violence is being done by young boys. So what I'm getting at is, is it a case of boys trying to be men before their time, and there is no man in the house to try to, one, to help raise this young person into a man, but to help guide this
I don't think you can blame it all on the fact that there's an absent father or something like that, or it's down to all the mothers, because like I said, I was a single mother and I raised 3 men, yeah, and their fathers weren't around. One was, we co-parented the best we could without any arguments and what was in the best interest of our child together. But unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, does it, with people? That doesn't happen. So, if I look at how we educate our children, I think mothers educate in a sense of don't be putting a hand on a woman now. Treat a woman good. You see what I'm saying? Obviously, because they're going off their own experience or stuff like that. You've got some mothers that will do that. Now, how do you teach a boy to slow down before he gets to try and be a man before his time and do silly things?
Well, I think that's the point that I'm raising. You need a man to be there. I co-parented my son, as you know, up until, I'm not saying that my job is finished, but up until just yesterday in particular, he's made it to 18, and I'm really happy and proud that he's made it so far, given where he lived and all that's going on around him. But I was always and have always been there to guide him and point him in the right direction. What I will say with that as well is I was there less than my own father, who, was and still is married to my mum. So I always had that cohesive.
You raised in a family environment, and your child was raised in again, how I was, single parents. We became single parents. We co-parented the best we could possibly co-parent for our children. And I think the difficulty comes into it is if you have got animosity between your either parents. That I think that's the breakdown completely for children.
It does.
So torn, so divided, and they do start to keep secrets because they don't want to bat off one against the other. Some people like that, some people don't. Earlier last night, I have to be honest, I watched this a child kill their own parents for the sake of money. And for the sake of doing what they want. A spoiled child wasn't brought up, since the father passed away. That changed the child completely. And even I think when you hear when fathers have walked out, I've had past relationships in my life where you hear the stories about their fathers have been absent, and it pinpoints to, it's probably, you built up all of this. I don't feel accepted, I'm rejected, and he didn't love me, he walked out on me, I can't see him, why me? The children have got too many questions, and it screws them up, and they take that into adulthood too. And when they take that into adulthood, here we go with the patterns again, because you're bringing into next minute they're having children, and then they're bringing into these children where you've got children having children, and there's arguments going on. Here comes the pattern all over again. And the thing is, we've got no backative really from. You need more workshops. You need pre-planning. You need guidance. But you see, if they're in a particular area and you know the crime is high, what can the parents do to keep them safe? You cannot look up the child all the time.
No, you can't. And
so
again,
how do you keep them safe?
Well, this is it. And I think, yes, parents have a lot to do, but also society has a lot to do also, because as we are about to find out, with the lockdown being lifted periodically over the next couple of weeks, this current batch of 16-year-olds now won't be taking any exams this year. They're just going to get given a grade at the end of August. Whether they make the grade now depends on whether they've worked hard throughout the last 2 years in particular. Now, they're going to get their grade, but even if they decide, well, they want to come out of school and work right about now, there is no work for them. Okay, there's no job for them.
They should they should bring back YTS. I heard you on the radio this morning about that, and I believe they should bring back YTS scheme.
Well, the trouble with it it costs the government money, and that's the government didn't want to spend.
Costing the government money every time they pick up a body bag.
Right, and this is the thing, but what also happened as well. So everything interangles with one. At the time when you had a thriving YTS scheme, I remember it at school. I wanted to do it, but my mum was dead against it. No, they just want to put you out on a building site, which to a certain extent was what they were trying to do. I mean, that was in the days, and I'm sure you'd understand this, when boys did woodwork and girls did home economics, like cooking and typing. It wasn't as unisex.
It's the YTS, they got paid for it.
Yeah,
they knew what they were getting paid each week, and I think I think they knew it was a job, it was a skill.
But what you're missing now is when that was thriving in the 80s, that's when the housing market was booming. So they were building housing, they were building stuff. Now that they privatized everything, there's nothing to build. So what's happened in the last 10 years is that you've got all of these kids now come out with all these qualifications, and there's nowhere for them to apply their trade.
For the adults at the moment either, is there?
And there isn't for the adults. So, and that's before COVID. Now we're in COVID and coming to the end of COVID. You think, kids ain't been to school for a whole year. When have you ever known that in your lifetime?
Wish I was a kid.
Well, yeah. Of course, we'd all wish we were kids now, innit? Oh, we don't have to go to school for a year. It'd be great, because you don't have the understanding that perhaps your parents have of the importance of it. But we're now going to see, and you're right, I did mention it this morning, parents going back to work if their job is still there. Now, if their job isn't there, it puts pressure on the family.
The whole household.
Household.
Ma'am, can I have a new phone? I can't
that's
afford
right.
It.
Yeah.
These trainers, I can't afford it.
If dad's not there.
And trainers ain't like £10, are they?
No,
not the ones that the kids want. The kids want, oh no, mate. My kids used to say, Mum, I want Nikes. I said, sorry, love, they only had Nikes. No, sorry, that's it. I want Nikes. I said, sorry, love, they only had.
You only had Nikes.
I'll never forget the time. I have to say this is classic. Well, there was these Nikes, and of course I went to the market, and £10 as opposed to £80.
Yeah, of course.
£10. Even £10 back in the day, I think, well, £20 was a lot of money for me.
Yeah, of course.
And so I've got these pair of Nikes.
Nikes, yeah.
My kids refused to wear them because they didn't say Nikes. Yeah, but they had a tick.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because they were the name brand, it wasn't the brand.
Yeah. No,
tick
was the wrong way around.
putting your kids in a position to wear something they are really uncomfortable, where they're going to be ridiculed. Honestly, I'm not saying you've got to, if they want them trainers, they best respect the first pair that you haven't bought them. Okay, so I have to say that there was a pair once. My father bought me a second-hand pair of short shoes home. There was these sandals, and they're the kind of sandals that, yeah, you can imagine the little ankle socks and the little strappy little sandals thing and a little heel thing. Like I was, yeah, and I refused. I didn't want to wear them, and obviously you can't disappoint your parent. You're wearing them. You go to school and you're wearing them. And I'm like, oh my God, but I know when I go to school, I'm gonna be. And this is the thing: your parents, your kids are telling you in your face, in your face, and we don't listen. But
all right, on that note,
you in your face, I'm gonna be bullied if I wear that at school, and you'll be like, I don't care, don't worry about what anybody thinks. But you're not the one going through it.
Right. On that note, because that's a really good point. Our parents went to school, so don't you think that
they went to posh school? Shush! They didn't even have half the troubles that we had. They were. Don't even get me started. They didn't. They were shush. And that's how they were disciplined at school. You weren't going to say nothing at school.
I guess, that's true.
And then when you go home, from school, you back then you get in school. Now I took that motto into my children as well. You get in trouble at school, you're going to get in trouble when you come home.
Of course.
And I took that same motto with my children, and I went ramping. Listen, because you're embarrassing me. All right. So I send you to school to get your head down, but I do understand that distraction is other.
Yeah, of course.
And so, but seriously, it's down to us. Okay, they're in trouble when they get home. If we don't follow through, that's affecting me, and over and over again. But listen, don't
one of the
talk
things
about your parents or my parents, because I can tell you, my mum went to all-girls school. You probably went to boys' school.
I went to all-girls school.
But I wasn't. I was in a school where it was mixed school, and I had nothing but bullying from all of it. Do you know what I mean? And so it's hard, because you do form relationships from home into the street, and then get into perhaps sex very early. Stealing and all of those things. And how do we prevent them? Is we have to. I had got out my pictures today. And I looked at my pictures of my children as they were kids, and I got quite angry and annoyed looking at those pictures. And I felt all we ever wanted to do was protect our children. And because we're in 2021, I think the system is making it so difficult. They feel they're doing it right, but they make it so difficult to correct our children, to implement any support for one another within the households, to even address such things as culture and parent alienation, to even get the right help and the right support in with these single parents. Because honestly, they always say that we don't want to take your children.
Do you think then that society is deliberately then messing up what is going on? Because
I think it's hard. I think you look at it, that the life that you hear crimes, knife crimes, it was there growing up.
Yeah, it's always been there.
At my age, but it's just heightened with the media.
Yeah.
That's heightened with the cell phones, instant caption now. Don't need no Polaroid, we can give it to you straight away.
It was nowhere near as bad as it is now. Last week I reported about 5 in particular, I beg your pardon, the week before.
But there
was 5 stabbings.
And if it wasn't the kids, it was.
Yes, it was there, but not at this ridiculous level where it's continuous every day. Kids are being stabbed. Last year I think was the first year that the total took a tumble. I think the year before we were up to like 60 kids being stabbed by February. Remember, there was that big, and I think last year it only calmed down because of Corona. again,
look at the living conditions as well. Look at let's start at the living conditions as well, right? Some of these people are crammed in cardboard boxes like they're little lab rats, all right? Some of the houses need improvement. They don't get in housing improvement either. I look, when I go to London, people say, go to London. Oh, let's go to London, it's amazing. It should be amazing. It shouldn't be scary. But when you go there, and I'm shocked to be driven and look, and you've got gates up against the houses.
Oh yeah,
you've got gates, you've got bars as if you're living in a prison.
From when I was a child.
Come on, tell me where you can. All right, I come from Suffolk.
When I was a child, you had that, yeah.
But I come from Suffolk. You don't see that here.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see that down here. Bars at the window.
It's funny. It's funny you mention that. Actually, I don't recall seeing it down here, but in London, and especially like.
That's the norm for you.
Yeah, it was. That was normal. People started.
It makes you want to say, then why would you want to stay in a place that has got so much?
Can you, or could you get out? I mean, even my parents, which is odd for them, were discussing getting bars on the window. And I think the only reason why my dad was against it is because there were some high-profile cases where people burnt to death in their house in the middle of the night.
Can I be honest with you?
You know,
I wouldn't want my children brought up in London. London is something that I thought, I would go, get the freedom, but I was always worried about crime. That was the first and foremost on my head. All right. And then when I used to hear, oh, I'm going to move to London, I say, why would you want your children brought up in London? Yeah, because there's more potential, but there's more crime, there's more risk.
There's a lot of everything more.
There's more gangs. What chance are you giving your children a chance to breathe in London? You see, I'm not a London gal, all right? I'm not, and I'm not a London gal. I say that, yet I started my childhood in London. Yeah, so backwards and forwards to London, but I'm not a London.
Yeah, you weren't raised there like I was. Yeah.
No, so it's more heightened in London with the lingo, and I'm going to use that word, with the lingo. It's more heightened to watch and know your place.
Yeah. In
a sense.
Pretty much. I think even for myself, when I left London, probably 16, 17 years ago now, there, even for adults at my age, sort of 35, 36, there was still, the eyeballing, oh, he's from South, he's from North, he's
but they still
West.
Do that now. Estate wars, or
postcode wars and all that. And I just thought, you know what, this is so silly. And there are stated cases, high profile cases where someone just like myself could decide, right, I'm going to go to a party over in South London tonight. Don't interfere with nobody, don't cause no one no problem, but I could find myself dead in the morning simply because I'm in the wrong area, and not even cause a fight, just somebody who's that, I don't like him, who's he walking in on her turf, boom, boom, and you're dead.
This is like where I'm from. I would know if I saw you when I met you. What did I say to you? You're not from here.
Yeah.
And you can tell who's from here, and it wasn't because of the colour. You just know you're not from around here. You know, because you kind of got a vision of, I don't know whether it's the way you carry yourself, whether it was your attire.
Probably my Cockney accent is the biggest.
I don't need to hear someone to tell you you're not from this town.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, I guess you would say that also.
Yeah, I did say that. Oh, you're not from here, because you kind of know. But as you get older, I've got these children are stepping into our shoes now.
And here is not as diverse as London, so. Of course,
and I think I think really at the end, what's the message of the day for you to give back now?
I would just I would like to say to adults, keep your eyes open for what these youngsters are doing, and if you see wrongdoing, step in to prevent it, like what these individuals did on this video. Just be mindful that you are dealing with a young person who doesn't have the poise or the composure yet to handle him or herself correctly. They might think
behind, aren't they?
Yeah, they might think that, you know, I'm a big man, I got this knife. But clearly, we've seen in that video two, you know, stockily built men, in my opinion, who looked overweight, didn't look like they could run for a bus, was enough to have him petrified. And he's the one with the weapon, you know?
Do you think that child will get any repercussions now? I think he'd be laughed at from his own age.
Yeah, he might be, but then the other thing for me is I think that knowing how teenagers think, and I speak from my experience as a former police officer, they have no respect. So the names that I was called from young boys, same age as him, you know, and you're telling them, look, you're under arrest now. We're gonna have to call your mum. So what? You're joking. You know, I'm, you know, in this grand old age now, and I've never been arrested, not once. There is no way that I could have been arrested and police calling my house to get my parents to come to the station to dig me out. No way. But young people nowadays, it's a badge of honor for them. It's a coat of arms. Yeah, where were you yesterday? Oh, I got arrested. I spent X amount of time in the cell. I've got to go to court next month. It's all a badge of honor. So I think I would really like adults to take what they've seen on board, but to act just slightly more compassionately, so that the professionals, the police, can come in and clean these boys up and make sure that they get.
I reckon the boy will go to court. Boy might get caution.
Well, it depends on what his previous are, and the way the law sits at the moment with this knife crime, he could potentially face a custodial sentence up to 2 years, because realistically, in these times, you have no business walking around with that chopper. No business whatsoever. You haven't got a business where you can say you fit carpet. And even if you fit carpet, you don't use a knife like that. You use a little Stanley knife, and it's tucked away neatly in your toolbox. Just walking around the streets aimlessly, with what looked like a steak knife.
I would prefer,
you know,
if punishment was for him to go and listen to some of those parents that have lost their children to knife crime. I would also want him to perhaps find some career in preventing such thing.
But
as far as rehabilitation, the thing is, if you're going to rehabilitate a child that has made a mistake like that and doing that kind of incident, then do it properly, and do it where he can learn something, a very valuable lesson and a skill out of it, where he can give back, because that incarcerating him, sending him on that, is just going to be punishment for him later on. That's going to be on his record later on, and so therefore he never will get away with that, will he?
Yeah, I understand that too as well. I do personally think, though, the deterrent from the off has got to really be a deterrent. I mean, we've just seen last week, I spoke about it on the show, the young man taking selfies of himself in prison and sending it back out to the street.
If you be honest, there was an incident, and I just nearly forgot about that. There was a young guy that stabbed someone, and a few weeks later went on to stab again. And so he didn't have that example set from the first stab. And again, I felt that the victim didn't get no proper support through that either. And then he went on to go and stab somebody else again. And so I think the CPS need to come a little bit harder.
They do, but also in some of these cases as well, and I think I know the case that you're talking about, people need to put their street loyalty to one side, and that you'll find is the biggest hurdle. People, you know, okay, they've got a little job, but you know, they walk a thin line between good and bad, and
they teach
you know,
let me tell you something, they teach you don't be a snitch. Yeah, so you go and you take that through your adulthood too, and then suddenly people are ending up with domestic violence and things like that. All of these things are happening backstage because of that. Don't snitch. Snitches get stitches. Now, well, hold on a minute. You can't live your life in fear, and you can get some protection if you are in a situation where your life is being jeopardized, and there can be a way where you can get some protection where it's done secretly.
Yeah. The trouble is that you and I both know when you get to this age, there are people still living that life. So, you know, at what point are those people at our age going to learn that basic lesson? And they're still the people that we're appealing to make their grandsons like this now. You know,
I'm sad at the way the world
Yeah.
has become, because, you know, it's not just, I think even though your children are grown, you never stop worrying about them.
No.
You know, you just don't. I mean, I don't know what to say in relation to what we're seeing over and over again. I do not want it to become the new norm.
No,
people to.
But unfortunately, I think, I mean, even like me reporting on it, I've become numb to it before. Oh my God, that's terrible. Yeah. Especially when.
Now it's just like, oh really? Okay, yeah, all right. You know, or you just.
I mean, like, I said to you earlier, yesterday, my son was 18. And I'm like, whoopee, he made it. Those are the words I'm using. He made it.
And now, and I said to you before, you think that you can protect them at such and such age, but even when they get to the 18-year-old.
Oh yeah, I understand that. But what I meant was that we've seen high profile stories of 12 and 13-year-olds being shot to pieces and killed, and they're being shot to pieces and killed by 12-year-olds. So for me to get him to 18, you know, I think is a big milestone, you know, insofar as that milestone now is, if I say to him, well, don't do this, he's at his liberty now, especially the way society is. Well, sorry, Dad, I'm a man. I'm gonna go and do it, and I just have to just like
all the things that you done to your mother.
you know. But the difference is, even when I was 18, I was still quite heavily under my parents' control. But then I lived at home, so you had to, as they say, put up or shut up, you know. But no, it's been a good debate, and I'd like to come back to you with an update, if I can get an update on this particular story. But there's other stories out there that I'm sure we can bounce our ideas off of, and you know, just keep fighting the good fight. So thank you very much for your assistance this evening. Yeah.
My message is speaking out. It still is. It's always going to be the same.
Yeah.
Speaking out saves lives, and support saves so much more. I think you're always going to look over your shoulder and fear as we grow and go forward, that we will come up with people that are bullies, that are a certain authority, and we cannot bow down to these people. Yeah. And I know that you know, look, back in the old days, we would have liked to give them a clout or two, but we can't even do that anymore. Society says that we're not allowed to go out and do it the old-fashioned way and protect ourselves with a little bit of go in the boxing ring. They said you can do that. Yeah. You know, so if you've got pent up anger and stuff like that, yeah, you can go in the boxing ring and do it that way. but we're not allowed to put each other's hands on each other anymore, any longer. It isn't right for what I know now. It isn't right. We're talking about rehabilitation and doing the right thing and good role models. Then yeah, first of all, first do no harm. That's the first rule of thumb.
Okay, good advice. Good advice. Excellent.